to the October 2022 Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Commission meeting. Good morning to all of you. So happy to see you. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand while the Corpus Christi Police Department presentation of the colors. And then if you please remain standing for our invocation by Austin PD's Chaplain Rick Randall. Commissioner Burris.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Could we join together in prayer? Heavenly Father, we come to you today to seek your blessing and to have your guidance as this commission meets here in this place. We are grateful to you, O Lord, for raising up these men and women to provide leadership, not just for this agency, but for the men and women of law enforcement across this state. We are mindful that these are challenging times for the profession, but we are also mindful that through you, Lord, every challenge can be overcome. And with your wisdom, God, these deliberations will be just and fruitful. As we begin this day, Father, we ask that you grant your continuing protection to the men and women who serve in law enforcement across this state. We boldly ask, God, that every single one would return home after their shift today safe, sound, and whole. And we also ask for your comfort and consolation for those family members of our fallen. May they ever know your peace that is beyond human understanding. We ask all of these things, Lord, in your great and glorious name. Amen.
Amen. Right turn.
And you may be seated. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask that you give a round of applause to the Corpus Christi Police Department Honor Guard. That was Senior Officers Julio Ramos, Manny Fonseca, Charla Hennerly, Joel Torres, and Gary Williams. And of course, we thank you very much, Chaplain, for being here with us today. Thank you so much to all of them. And I would now like to ask Ms. Flott to go ahead and take roll, please.
Presiding Officer Kim Lamo,
Here.
Commissioner Jason Hester,
Here.
Commissioner Patricia Burris,
Present.
Commissioner Ron Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Jana Atkins,
Here.
Commissioner Michael Griffiths,
Here.
Commissioner Mario Lascano, Commissioner Martina Lamont Dixon,
Here.
Commissioner Justin Berry.
Here.
Thank you.
And I'd like to ask each of you to join me in a moment of silence. We lost a great friend to TCOLE, Rex White, who was retired Harris County Sheriff's Officer. And he recently passed away. In fact, his services, I believe, are going to be today, but he served as the University of Houston downtown training coordinator and served in many roles and capacities assisting TCOLE. So if you could join me in a moment of silence to honor him, please. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And as I said, good morning, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the annual conference this year. It's great to get back together again after 3 years. And I know our interim executive director asked Monday afternoon how many of you had ever been to the conference, and a great number of you raised your hands. How many of you have ever been to a TCOLE Commission meeting? Okay, I did it a little bit differently. But not very many folks, so we appreciate you joining us this morning and taking the time to see how your commission works. We very, very much appreciate it. I know it's great to be back in person. This is the first time that we've ever held a commission meeting incorporated into the training conference. So I know that it's a first, and as you leave the conference and in the days to come, you'll be asked for feedback, but that'll be one of the items I'd ask that you give some thought to, because we have a choice when we set the commission meetings, and feedback on whether it was good to incorporate it into the conference or they just need to be separate would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So let me, I want to go ahead and first off thank the TCOLE staff. I don't know if, I'm going to guess that not many of you have been involved in conferences, but to put on the largest law enforcement conference in the state of Texas with 1,200 attendees is no small feat. And these folks have been working for nearly a year to make this happen. And it was a little bit harder this year because we haven't had a conference in 3 years. So, you know, when you have it each year, you just kind of fall back into that cycle, but they had to reestablish that rhythm and cycle. But they worked so hard. They got here early. They will be the first ones here and the last ones to leave, but they've just done an amazing job, and I hope that each of you are having a great experience being here, especially since so many of you have never attended a conference before. So let's give our TCOLE staff a round of applause. I also want to take the opportunity to introduce our 2 new commissioners. We're very, very excited to have them. Ms. Martina Lamont Dixon of Kingwood is here. Ask you to say hello to everyone. She's the Chief Executive Officer at C3 Building Solutions and brings such a depth and wealth of experience and community service to the commission, and we're very excited that she has joined our team. We also have Officer Justin Berry, who's a senior police officer with the Austin Police Department. Justin, if you want.
Hello.
And he also brings a depth of experience and community service to the TCOLE Commission. So we are just delighted to have both of you here and that you've joined the commission. I would also like to ask that if any of you would like to speak towards the end, if you'll look at the agenda, there is an opportunity to give comment at the end. You do need to sign up on one of the sign-up cards. The sign-up cards are located at the scanning stations out the doors and to the left. I feel like a flight attendant. But if you'll please do that, they'll make sure that the cards make their way up here. That'll be towards the end of the program, so you have a few minutes to do that. So from here, we are going to move on to agenda item number 2, which is the approval of the minutes of the August 4th, 2022 commission meeting. And do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 4th, 2022 commission meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
it.
We have a few seconds. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you so much. And we are now going to go to agenda item 3, which is receiving the reports from the TCOLE staff. And we have Interim Executive Director John Beecham here with us. And sir, we will start with you.
Thank you very much. Very briefly, Commissioners, I want to just reiterate what we talked about in the opening ceremony on Monday for the benefit of both the Commission staff and obviously all the attendees this morning. I want to emphasize the dates on the sunset review for TCOLE. And again, November 17th, I want everybody in the regulated community tell everybody know out in the public, whoever it is, that the November 17th will be the sunset report, and it should be available. We'll have it up on our website along with other venues. And importantly, after that, the hearings in Austin will be on December 6th, and the final decision hearing in front of the Sunset Advisory Commission will be on January 11th. Again, November 17th, the final report comes out. First hearing is December 6th in Austin. Final decision hearing is on January 11th. Now, along those lines, I also wanted to bring up the exceptional items that we're going to be asking from the legislature, and I'm going to give everybody just a brief enough overview of what we're going to be doing this session. And again, is a matter of new commissioners on the commission and for the audience as well. Our first exceptional item will be requesting information technology service delivery, digital transformation, and data management. And again, going back to our conversation on Monday during the open ceremonies, last session we were able to purchase the TCOLE's database. That's the first time in our history that we actually have control and are able to program it in-house. And that's probably been, at least with my personal association with this agency going back to 2007, is probably the biggest leap and move of independence that this agency has had. So it's been nothing but positive, and looking into the future, I don't think it's going to be anything but get better and better as we go along. And again, Jessica Caprero and the information technology team have done a fantastic job in both getting us caught up, keeping up, and getting ahead on that. And I'm sure they'll continue to do a great job. So the second exceptional item we'll be requesting, and this was referenced this Monday as well, specifically relates to employee recruitment and retention for the agency. We're not asking for any additional full-time employees in this regard. However, we are seeking to tie our sworn personnel to Schedule C pay to be at least get comparable with similarly situated other state licensed peace officers. In addition to that, the request also goes for our sworn side. Monetarily, the request is split roughly evenly between the sworn side and the non-sworn. And that's probably, those two items are the biggest fiscal request, but obviously they're also equally as important in the operations of the agency. Our next exceptional item of note relates to the school marshal program support. This request it would seem to relieve the funding from the governor's grant and put it in under TCOLE's budget. Along with that, we are making requests for 7 full-time employees as it relates to additional agency operations support, both administrative, HR, and legal support, which we do not currently have. And again, as Chief Lameau referenced yesterday in the workshop, we want to thank all the commissioners headed by Ron Hood that helped us out in developing our exceptional items, and we appreciate y'all's service. It was a wonderful collaboration, and it certainly gives us both fantastic leadership and support from the commissioners as we go before the legislature, and that gives us great confidence in advocating for these things. And again, we appreciate all y'all's support and all the time that was spent on this. Speaking of agency operations, I would like to, historically, we have always recognized new employees with the agency. I will go through the list. It's been a flurry of activity through the summer and before that, so we're going to try to catch everybody that we didn't get back at the last commission meeting. So with that being said, we've got a few more names than we normally do, but we're going to give them to you, and we want to welcome the board to the TCOLE team. In the enforcement division, we have Courtney Rolando, we have Dan Morellis, we have in the legal division, Elisa Tabola, in the IT department, Ben Lusby and Joe Dooley. Standards Development, Rhonda Chamberlain. Field Services, Chris Cogan. And as Program Specialist 3 in the IT department as well, we have Katie Screehawk. So welcome aboard you all to TCOLE, and we look forward to a long and productive career with the agency. Thank you very much. This concludes my report. If there's any questions from the commissioners, I look forward to answering them.
I want to recognize John, because the commissioners, well, for those of you that don't know, John holds the position of General Counsel for TCOLE, and the commissioners came to him and asked him to also serve in the role of Interim Executive Director. And I think many of us in the room have worn 2 hats, and it's a challenge, it's difficult, it's a lot of extra work. So I think on behalf of all the commissioners, John, you're doing a great job, and we very much appreciate, excuse me, y'all have some allergies down here, so excuse me, but we very, very much appreciate the great job that you're doing. And from here, we are going to go to our Credentialing, Education, and Field Services, Mr. Cullen Grissom.
Good morning, Commissioners. I want to take the opportunity under Education Services hat to remind the regulated community that in the 23-25, not the current unit, but the upcoming unit, telecommunicators will need both the CPR course 3845 and the new Cardiac Emergency Communications course, which is course number 786. Education Services is currently working on revisions as a result of a beta test to put the Cardiac Emergency Communications on my TCOLE account, so it will be readily available to licensees there. We do know that many trainers have already implemented that course. We've seen 35 rosters in the last couple of months, so we know that the 786 course is being taught now. We do have a working group looking at basic and advanced instructors and instructor proficiency certificate. I would encourage people, if they want to be part of that process, to contact Education Services and express that interest. We're looking at revising the curriculum. They have met. We've got about 15 Texas trainers on the focus group right now that we're working with, but we're eager to have more input. We're in the final draft stage of the peace officer salary survey required of us in the from the last legislative session. We'll be publishing that within the week or so, and that will be available. It will on the web. That report will go to the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker of the House before the session. In credentialing, we are fully staffed, which is a really good thing. We're working hard. I know that we've processed about 4,200 L1s, 600 plus L1Ts, and about 9,000 F5s since our last meeting. The phone calls coming into credentialing, they managed 70, or they were presented with 7,600 calls, handled 7,538, which were remaining at a call abandonment rate of about 1.8%. I know Commissioner Hester that's a metric that I owe you. So we're happy with a 1.8% rate, striving for zero, but there are several reasons that may happen. In field services, the biggest change to happen in a long time is we have taken the two academy and contract evaluator positions. We've merged those completely into field services. We reorganized the state from 8 regions into 10 regions to reduce kind of the footprint, the travel footprint in some cases, get more people out there. It will allow us to do some cost savings. So if you're a TCOLE regulated agency that is both a law enforcement agency and a training provider, you will have one visit from TCOLE, and that will cover both your training contract and your licensing requirements audit. So we're in the process of making that now. If anybody in the audience is interested, we have posters posted around the conference that shows a graphic description of where the changes are and where the new regions are. That's really all I have this morning, Commissioners, unless someone has a question.
Colin, thanks for that. So I know we've gotten down the abandoned calls, from 49% all the way down to 7%, which is phenomenal by staff. And so I just wanted to pass that along. For folks that are here in the audience, I think probably one thing is, and I guess the question first is, on our time to get to an email, when somebody sends an email in for a login recovery or whatever it is, what are we averaging on being able to get to that email and answer?
I don't have the number. Our target is with 24-hour response across all of whether it's credentialing help, name change, roster amendments. Our goal is 24-hour response, but I don't have the numbers in front of me.
No, that's perfect. Because I think that is important for everyone to understand. In today's time, we're used to, hey, I send an email, and I expect a really quick response from somebody most times. And I think sometimes what happens is people send an email and then they don't. I get impatient, right? I'm like, well, I'm not hearing anything in a couple hours, so then I'm going to turn around and call the contact center, and so it ends up being double work for staff, right, at the end of the day. So a little bit more as an education for all of us is if you send us an email, on average, we should get back to you within 24 hours or less. I appreciate staff's work, continuing on the customer service side, getting the calls down. These are large volumes of calls and emails that you guys are handling. I really, again, I said it last time and I'll say it again, the information that we're getting on the statistics, the data, what we're looking at, I really appreciate that. So thank you. I don't have anything else, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
I'm going to pass the microphone to our resident birthday girl. Today is Jessica's birthday.
Yes, and we'll be receiving the report from Jessica Caprero on information technology and special services, and yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. In the beginning of September, we implemented the new file size limit for the TCOLE Secure Share application. It went from 2 megabytes to 500. Since then, we've seen over 6,000 uploads, and the average file size that's coming through is about 4 megabytes, so well under the 500 limit. I'd also like to point out that since acquiring TCLEDs and the support for TCLEDs, we've seen a pretty large increase in email and telephone support. And while that volume is increasing, our phone statistics, including our abandonment rate, has improved. And a recent survey to all TCLEDs users also established that overall the customer satisfaction with our email and telephone support has improved as well. That's all I have for my report. If there's anything you'd like to ask, I'd be happy to answer.
I'd like to ask you to repeat the statistic, the 2 to 500. Just so that everyone understands, we had to get this online quickly. It came up. There were, a lot of concerns, a lot of complaints across the state on it. They were diligently working on getting the capacity increase, but if you could just maybe expound just a little bit on that so that maybe people that tried to submit something under, before you increase the capacity, understand that that has been significantly increased and should handle most files.
Yes. We did change the method of storing the files, and so one of the biggest points of feedback regarding the TCOLE Secure Share application was the limitation in the uploads. And so people were breaking their files up, submitting several uploads in order to get everything through. That's no longer the case. You can now upload your files as one file and have plenty of capacity to do so.
Madam Chair. Jessica, I know we're going through the process to more formalize the secure share. What do you guys envision that looking like from the user's perspective, and so that those that, all the trainers that are here in the room, they're probably in this every day if you're processing files, but what do y'all anticipate that looking like in the future? Because right now it's kind of on its own, so can you kind of walk through what that's going to look like, or what y'all's goal is? I know we're not quite there yet. But.
Yeah, it's early in the process to really give details on how that process would flow, but our goal is to bring them all together where they're all integrated with TCLEDs.
Okay.
So that you log into one spot and you can go to open a BCF, come back to the background confirmation form throughout the process, and then seamlessly request a ticket through TSS to get documents electronically, and then hopefully also smooth out to the next step, which is the L1. We want to just smooth that whole process out so that it's not so much back and forth between applications.
Perfect. I think that's going to be key for that, for continuing to make it successful. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any other comments or questions? For those of you in the audience, TCOLE has a very small budget in the grand scheme of things. Fortunately, in the last legislative session, the agency did receive some additional funding, and we've been able to make a lot of changes and improvements in the technology area of the agency. We appreciate the patience and the grace that all of you have shown. We welcome the feedback that y'all provide to us because we want to make it a good experience, and we don't want to be extra work or create extra work and bureaucracy for you. So appreciate all of that. Please know that we have a new technology director, and we are making a lot of improvements, and we have a lot of things in the works, as you could hear, and we just appreciate all the great work and look forward to continued improvements, as you heard Interim Director Beecham talk about. He spoke about asking for additional funding for positions and such. So again, I'm going to challenge all of you because I'm going to guess that most of you are part of an association. And I would ask that you personally, or would ask for your support personally and as the various groups, because the additional funding or the request for the exceptional items, all these improvements are here to serve you and the citizens at a higher level than what we are. But we do need your help and we need your support, so I'll throw that challenge out there to everyone. So we are going to go ahead and move to the enforcement report. And TJ.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's an honor to be here this morning, particularly to share this process with so many of the people that we serve. I'm just going to update you on 3 of our bigger ongoing projects in enforcement. You've heard Interim Executive Director Beecham talk about Target 100 initiative and our efforts to reduce the number of cases that go to eliminate all cases that go to suspension or revocation for training noncompliance. This has been a big focus for us. We've been working with Jessica's team and credentialing. In the past, prior to the training deadline, we've notified agencies of their officers in noncompliance and relied on them to notify the officers. In this next unit, we will also directly email the licensees to the email address they have in the TCOLE account when we notify the agencies. We also plan to send a text message if we have the information available to do so as we get very close to the deadline. So our effort is to make sure that every licensee is notified and has an opportunity to address it before the training deadline. As part of this process, we've notified the agencies, sent them a PDF file that they can forward to their employees, walking them through the process of updating their contact information in TCOLE. We're making a real focus to make sure we have current contact information there so that we can use that to contact licensees and keep them updated on their license status. I've been meeting with the agencies. We broke down the numbers for the August 31st, 2021 deadline. We had almost 2,000 violations. We broke down those numbers, and the agencies that had by far the greatest number of those violations, I've been meeting with them in an effort to reduce those. Those have been very positive meetings. I make it clear that it's ultimately the licensee responsibility, right? It's not the agency's responsibility, but they have a vested interest. There's organizational cost that comes with people being suspended and revoked in particular, and we've talked about how to do that. We've identified ways to improve the process. Some of it is education, teaching them how to run TCOLE's reports so they can identify those deficiencies before the deadline, how they can remove unnecessary licensees, and then another big conversation has been around advancing proficiency certificates. So especially the very large agencies sometimes have a lot of licensees who are not advancing, and if you have a basic license, it increases that training load for the academies. So we've had good success with that. Something else that we've been working on, obviously, is identifying those. It's disappointing that anyone would have their license suspended for training noncompliance, but to lose your license over that is a big deal. So I'm making sure that they're aware of any licensees they have appointed who have 1 or 2 prior reprimands so that they can prioritize those and make sure that they don't risk revocation. The last thing I want is an agency to lose someone they've invested so much time and money in over something like training compliance. Those meetings have not only been fruitful in the meeting itself, but obviously the ongoing communication that comes from that. And then their efforts, I've seen some of them already substantially reduced their numbers for this next training unit. I've been working with Jessica also on getting a case management system. I know I've spoken with some of you about this. Right now, we just write our reports in Word or a PDF file and we save it in TCOLE. We want a traditional police reporting system that will allow us to link cases. It will allow us to do a lot more with stats, and in particular, it will allow us to identify trends and systemic problems that we can't see clearly now. My ongoing goal in all of this is that we are more proactive and that we prevent cases, right? That if we can see a trend or a problem and we can find a way to address that and prevent other people from receiving discipline, that we do that. We're prioritizing a system that would allow our field service agents to also use it and hopefully reduce some of their paperwork, and then we can share information on our contacts with agencies and licensees. So we've met with several vendors to identify products that would work, and then we're trying to determine the customizations that will allow us to track our unique workload. So in particular, our cases where we have an administrative inquiry that turns into a criminal case, and we can track to resolution both of those things, and we can capture the data necessary to see what administrative cases we have that result in discipline and what cases we have that result in criminal cases, and then also to be able to track the independent criminal cases where we receive E1 reports. And I think that we will be able to find a way to do that, and it will give us a lot more information than we have now. A big part of that is determining how we will share that information with TCOLEs. I don't want employees to have to enter information twice. We're not going to enter it in our report system and enter it in TCOLEs. But again, we're confident in our conversation with vendors that we can find a simple way to do that will actually improve the information we have in TCOLEs and then give us a separate data source for some of the information that we want to track in enforcement. And then the last component we're working on is an online complaint system. So right now we have a relatively crude system where we receive complaints and we manually log them in a spreadsheet and track them. We would like for it to be a simpler process for people to submit complaints online. They'll get a more timely response, and particularly if they have a non-jurisdictional complaint, that they'll be aware of that sooner and given options for where they could make a complaint. It will allow us to more accurately compile statistics on those non-jurisdictional complaints, and then it will give us a better process to feed our complaints into a records management system. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, if I could make a statement. Thank you, Major Vineyard. I think Commissioners, a couple of different things going on is if you look at the tally on today's agenda, we have over 650, 660, somewhere in that vicinity of disciplinary actions related to failure to make failure to meet continuing education standards. And you'll also, as Major Vineyard discussed, the efforts that are being made on at the agency, both in the enforcement division and integrated through the IT credentialing throughout, in order to achieve what we discussed on Monday, the Target 100 initiative. It's going to be ongoing, and it's going to take actions, as Major Vineyard and his folks in enforcement have done, the continuing efforts of credentialing and everyone else in order to gather. It's going to be an ongoing and developing set of application of what we have and what we can do at the agency in order to aid the regulated community, in order for us all to get to that aspirational goal of hopefully next time it comes around after the compliance deadline, we won't have 600, 500, 400, whatever the case is. So again, just want to reiterate what we're going for at the agency, and appreciate everybody's continued efforts to try to achieve that goal.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so what mechanisms do we have in place to remind officers and entities of officers that they have deadlines coming up for training?
So the training deadlines are set by law, and they occur, on August 31st of every odd number year. So most officers know when those training requirements are. What generally the challenge is knowing whether or not they've met those training requirements. So right now, you can log into my TCOLE and you can see your PSR, and there's a separate place on the website where you can find the posting that have the legislative requirements and what you have to do. What they're working, and we hope to have integrated, is by the time that we're sending out emails to notify licensees that they're deficient, They'll log into my TCOLE, and it will show them the training deadline date, and it will show them the classes they're deficient. So rather than having to find two documents and put them together, it'll be displayed right there where they can see it. And when they complete the training, it will update, and they'll be able to see that the training is completed. So once that is implemented, that will be consistent ongoing, that when licensees log in, they'll immediately be able to see when the next training deadline is, even if it's 2 years from now, and what classes they're missing in order to achieve the compliance with the rules.
So are you saying that they actually have to log in to know that they have a training deadline coming up? Or is something sent to them automatically? And if something is sent to them automatically, what is the duration of time from them receiving notification and when the training deadline is occurring?
So in this next training unit, the deadline will be in August, and I believe we'll start in May or in March. But early in the spring, we'll start sending letters to the agencies telling them who they are so the training coordinators can reach out to those people, but we'll also email the licensee directly to let them know. They should all know, this has been the same for a very long time, and most licensees know every 2 years I have to have my training done. The challenge generally is making sure they know if they're deficient and where they're deficient. So in other words, they have to get 40 hours of legislative update. Some of them will have way more than 40 hours but don't realize they didn't have a legislative update. So when we send them an email and they log in, they'll see that they're missing that one class and can take that one class.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Commissioner, this is another one of those information technology boosts that we received from last session. In the past, we simply didn't have the capacity in order to reach our licensees individually in a timely and efficient manner via electronic mail. So that's another tool that we're going to use that we just didn't have available to us in the past.
Commissioner, to give you an idea of the workload, we are still working on training non-compliance cases from last August. So it's not just a enforcement, there's an administrative, and then it goes to legal. We try to notify them through the mail. So putting the resources on the front end and making some extra notifications and reaching out not only has a benefit to the licensee in that we give them the opportunity to avoid the problem, but it substantially reduces our workload on the back end, and it frees up resources to do more proactive and preventive measures in the future.
Well, that makes me want to ask another question. I mean, so I'm new here today, so is having 600 people lacking, training, is that a common number? Is that typical, or is this unusual?
So it's a little bit complex because we train on 2 and 4 year cycles, and the requirements change, so the numbers go up and down. That is a lot. There were a lot of factors that compounded that. The pandemic obviously created certain training challenges. There was a class that was legislatively mandated for jailers, mental health for jailers, which was unusual. So if you were a patrol deputy who also had a jailer license, in the past, if you did all of your peace officer training requirements, you also by default met your jailer training requirements. In that particular cycle, that was different, and a lot of them didn't realize it. And then in some of those cases, for example, if you ran a large sheriff's office, you had to make a staffing decision on if I'm going to send my active jailers or if I'm going to let my deputies who also carry a jailer license sit in that class. It was required to be an in-person class. This goes back to a question you asked yesterday. All of the courses that we offer online can also be offered as an in-person class, but some classes by law are required to be in-person classes, and those are a substantial challenge for some agencies, right? Getting someone to attend a online class is generally easier than an in-person, and not just from pulling the licensee and putting them in the class, but having the instructors available to teach those classes. So I think there were a lot of challenges that came together in 2021 that caused the numbers to be higher. But when you look at the 15 largest agencies, some of those in the top 5 had less than 10, and one of the agencies had more than 800. So certainly there are methods for reducing those numbers considerably.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair. I had another question, and just kind of come to my head, just in the realm that I'm at as a training coordinator. Is there a way to pull, and again, I don't mean to throw something else, especially at the IT, but I know we have a lot of officers that not working, but you have agencies that carry their commission, and I think there's a misunderstanding for a lot that think they have to have their commission carried
by somebody to still do this job, which a lot of them don't understand you don't have to. But I would like to know how many of these 600 or however many are not actually actively working, and an agency is carrying their commission, but and again, we do notify the agency, hey, you've got John Doe that's not getting their required training, and then you go, well, John Doe doesn't really work for us, we're just holding his commission. I mean, is there something that we're looking at as that respect? Would that bring our numbers down? Because you have a lot that aren't working, and some agencies are just, well, he doesn't work for me, so really, if he doesn't get his training, it's not a big thing for me if he doesn't get his training. Do y'all understand what I'm trying to
I absolutely understand, and I've seen the problem in real time, right? I've talked to some of the reserve officers who say the agency never notified me, and there's a clear communication problem. It's easier to address the officer that you see every day than it is a reserve officer that you don't see. So that has been a challenge. Some of that is as simple as them changing their contact information. If they will keep their TCOLE account updated, then we will be able to notify them directly. That's part of our goal, right? I don't know that that will always work, and I don't know that we can right now tell you the scale of that problem because of the way that reserve officers, the classification has changed within TCLEDs over time, right? And the pay status has changed over time, so we can't always see that. I will tell you that some of the agencies I met with, they have identified that as a core problem, particularly the larger sheriff's offices, and they are looking to address that. But I think our direct notification licensees will help them. I think your first point was the most important point, because I agree with you that it's a huge education problem that officers believe someone has to carry my license, and they don't. If they are not appointed but keep their training up to date, then they will remain active and can be reappointed at any time. And so I think that there is a benefit to this. I think that's secondary, right? I always talk about we got to stop the bleeding. Right now the problem is so bad that we need to reduce the number of active officers that are not meeting the compliance requirements. Once that's a manageable number, then I think we can find strategies to address the reserve officers, and in particular to educate people. I think as we drive more and more people to relying on TCOLE for information, then we can put that information there and it will be more easily received. Right now we have the challenge of how we communicate that information.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't there a designation or?
It's not on.
Is there a designation on the, there is one on the full-time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit to the case management system. I know you mentioned that you were looking for some customizations in that to be able to run the reports and things that we would like to be able to do. Are any of those reports that we would need statutorily required reports on anything, or is it just for internal abilities to see where things?
I do think the statute requires us to be able to break down the non-jurisdictional complaint classifications, and we would be able to more easily do that through that system. But I think the other things that we're talking about are more of looking at underlying problems, and then, for example, the numbers that we broke down for you at the top of my report, I would like to have much more detailed information. I would like to know how the E1 cases break down. I would like to be able to provide hotspot maps. If all the DWIs are in one area, then that's something that we might be able to work with a local agency or police association to find things to address. It's not our primary responsibility, but if we have people losing their licenses and we're having to take action, we can solve two problems at once, right? I can reduce the number of people that are losing their license, and I can reduce the number of cases that we're having to work on. So if we have the information and we're not using it, then let's find a way that we can see the information more clearly and use it. And I think that's what that system will allow us to do.
Okay. I guess just, when you start talking customizations, that's where the price starts getting a little out of whack.
And to be clear, what we're looking at is systems that will allow us to do that ourselves. So we will be able to create our own custom title codes and attach dispositions to those title codes.
Okay.
And I think what it ultimately comes down to is what we've talked about is we need to decide what the data is that we need to be able to see to make decisions, and then we need to make sure that we're capturing the things to get us there. I don't believe that we are right now as much as we should be, and so I want to make sure that whatever system we have will have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think we do really good in government work sometimes to say, hey, we want something to fit where we're at right now. And then I think the challenge would be to staff would be like, let's look at where we want to go and how we want it to look. And then let's make the improvements instead of getting for what we have now and then within a year, you're like, well, I wish we would have done something else. So I think for me, the request would be, let's look to see, not necessarily pie in the sky, but what is the most efficient and best that we can get. And I know you guys will probably have those conversations because y'all have been doing really good with a lot of that stuff as of late, so thank you.
We are, and in particular, we're discussing the possibilities of staged implementation. Where are we limited by personnel and where are we limited by money, and then how can we anticipate where we need to be in 3 years and what steps do we have to take first? So that is definitely the approach we're taking.
On non-jurisdictional complaints, you said, if I heard you right, and we just got the monitor turned on up here, so thank you guys at the back, probably should have. I just want to make sure I heard correct. We're looking at having a public-facing place to receive complaints on the website?
Right, so there is a place on the website you can go, but it directs you to an email link and you email it. And I would prefer to have a form that you fill in, you provide the information, and you submit it. And then you get an email back confirming it. And if you have submitted something that is not within our jurisdiction, that's explained, as well as options for where you likely can find assistance.
So we're getting it in writing and meeting all the requirements to do that.
Yes,
But
sir.
I think when people hear that you can just send things in anonymously and start, throwing stuff and seeing what'll stick. So I just want to make sure that we were clear on that. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair.
I just have a couple comments to make. One, it's been challenging to participate because we're getting a lot of feedback over here from the front line, but I think it's gotten fixed. It's a little better. So thank you guys in the back. I just wanted to bring home a couple points. One, for the audience here, you all are probably not who we're talking about with not being compliant. You're here. And so we appreciate that. And really the message that we want you all to take home with you is to your friends, to your coworkers. Hey, TCOLE is serious about your compliance. So you can take them back, the number that's been mentioned a couple times here today. There's 660 officers who are being reprimanded. People are losing their licenses. And so ultimately, you all know this. You're here, you're on top of things, but it's your license and the responsibility is ultimately yours. So we know it's challenging with the lack of technology that we've had with TCOLE for so long. Thankfully, as has been stated several times here this morning, we are getting funding. We have gotten funding. We're asking for more funding to serve you better so you can be in charge of your own fate and you don't need to go ask anyone for any of this information, be it us or your agency heads or your designated persons. So again, thank you guys, and please take home that message. And my second point is this is kind of in response to some of the discussion that Jason began with you, TJs, are the issues of capturing some of this data. Prior to this huge move to have control over the system, to create a system that's workable for us, we didn't have the ability to know, really. We could guess. We had anecdotal evidence to suggest that there was non-compliance for various reasons, or certain trends that we saw were for various reasons. But we don't know. They're guesses. And it's not until now that we're really going to be able to see what is the data actually showing us, not what do we think is happening. So we're really looking forward to that. I think you all are on the right track. I believe we've clearly articulated what our desires are, and I'm sure based on our conversations with you all that you all know what we're looking for as well, and you're striving to achieve those same goals. So thank you all for that. We're going to continue to try to be as patient as possible. Of course, we want everything as soon as possible, but we know that that we're limited until we can build out all these things. But thank you for your continued work on it, and we're looking forward to all the information that you're going to bring us.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We will now go to our Director of Government Relations, Ms. Gretchen Grigsby.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for being here today. I want to echo John's comments about staff and the amount of work that's gone into it. We've had a tremendous staff that's really put a lot of work into this conference and this commission meeting, and a lot of folks have really stepped up, and I want to express that appreciation to make this whole thing a success. There's just been a few small things happening around TCOLE lately, as you're aware, not the least of which is preparation for the upcoming legislative session and the budget process that goes along with that. I want to again express thanks to Commissioner Hood for shepherding the exceptional items subcommittee to get our budget requests together. That turned into a legislative appropriations request, and we had a hearing on that request on August 30th. Before the governor's office, the legislative budget board, the lieutenant governor's office, the Senate Finance Committee, and House Appropriations all had staff there. John did a fantastic job in laying out those requests, and we got some really good questions and feedback from the attendees there, the staff that had the opportunity to ask the agency questions as we begin this budget process. Of course, the process really has just begun. The legislative session doesn't begin until January 10th, and so in the interim, we are continuing to meet with legislators and their staff and begin those discussions on what our requests are and the importance of them. Obviously, as John said, the IT requests and the agency staff recruitment and retention are of the utmost importance. School safety can't be discounted. That's going to be a very large topic this legislative session, and getting some support for the school marshal program would be very, very helpful. Not the least of which in our agency's portfolio this time will be the sunset process. Again, as we've said many times over, we are undergoing our limited scope sunset review, and we have been meeting with, we've met with a majority of the sunset legislators and their staffs just in the last few weeks, and those have been very positive meetings. They've had a lot of great questions, and the overarching theme is let's see what we can do to get TCOLE through this process and go on about our business. John mentioned the timelines had been pushed back. Of course, our sunset staff report will be released on November 17th. I just want to make the point publicly that it wasn't just our process that was delayed. That was applied to all agencies that are currently under sunset review due to a number of circumstances. And so we will press on until November 17th and look forward to that. Obviously, there have been other issues that we've been discussing with legislators and their staff as we get ready for session. School safety has continued to be a large topic, as I mentioned. That's going to relate to officer training, active shooter training, command protocols, and the school marshal program and potential expansions there. We had the opportunity to meet a couple weeks ago with the new Chief of School Safety and Security within the Texas Education Agency, as named by the governor, a gentleman named John Scott, and we really look forward to a partnership with him. I think he's going to do a fantastic job there. He's been charged with kind of shepherding what that school safety and security process looks like for school districts across the state. We also had a successful Texas Law Enforcement Peer Network Media event in Dallas on September 8th in conjunction with Suicide Prevention Awareness Week, hosted by the Careers Police Institute at UNT Dallas. There were about 20 media outlets there. Remarks were given by Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia and State Senator Royce West. And I want to recognize the Peer Network staff, Chief Jeff Spivey and Dustin Skellinger were here this week, and I hope a lot of folks had an opportunity to attend those events yesterday. They did a fantastic job, and we really appreciate them being here and our continued partnership with them. We also have a new governor's office analyst, Trent Peroya, and we had the opportunity to meet with him last week, and we look forward to a great partnership with him. I think he's going to do a wonderful job of working with us and helping us not just express our needs, but help advocate for us. And we really, really appreciate Trent and the work that we're going to continue to do with him. We've also been working with the Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force staff on reviewing suggested changes to the basic peace officer course and a few other courses that we have in existence. They have worked with their stakeholders to make some recommended changes, and we will continue working with them. And you all might see some amendments to the basic peace officer course, and particularly the trauma-informed approach to sexual assault investigations courses. So we will take those recommendations and work with them on that so that officers are well equipped to deal with sexual assault survivors and bring those cases to justice. At our next meeting in December, we will have names for the Texas Peace Officers Memorial Monument that will take place on April 30th. That ceremony will be held on April 30th of next year, and we will bring the names before you. We've been working with the Peace Officers Memorial Ceremony Committee to get those names together and recommend them to you at the December meeting. Always appreciate the continued partnership with that ceremony committee. And Commissioners Hood and Berry had the opportunity to come and meet as we comprehensively look at what line of duty deaths look like in Texas and how we can best support the survivors of those fallen officers. And so I hope to have an update for you in one of our future meetings. Obviously, there's going to be a lot that will go into that, but we're looking at potentially a statewide coordinator somewhere within a state entity, whether it's TCOLE or another place, governor's office potentially, and what that would look like to help take all of the different piecemeal benefits that are out there and paperwork that needs to be filed and bring that together where it's not somebody going through the most traumatic event in their life and trying to figure out where to go next. My final piece is a reminder for the Law Enforcement Achievement Awards. We will be sending out an email next week. We obviously offer awards in the categories of valor, public service, and professional achievement. And we want to make sure that everybody is aware of those awards and gets the opportunity to nominate their folks for the many amazing things that our officers are doing statewide. And so, like I said, the email will go out next week with a reminder. Officially, the deadline to submit those is December 31st, but with the holidays and everything that happens around there, we will continue to accept those through January 15th. That is the end of my prepared remarks, unless you have any questions.
Commissioner Burris?
Thank you, Gretchen, for all the great information. We'll be on pins and needles until the gavel drops. I do want to highlight one more thing for the audience at this point, and that's the peer-to-peer network and the app. I know approximately 150 or 175 of you were able to attend the breakout session related to that, and that means a lot of you were not able to attend that, obviously, because there's a whole lot of interesting things going on at the same time. But I would like to challenge each of you that are here today to get online, get the app, and if it's not for you, you may want to be familiar with it for a loved one, for a fellow brother. So please check it out. It's really important. It's important to us that you all are healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, and all of that. And if there's someone that you want to talk to who's maybe not in your office, just another officer that you want to talk to about some of these things, please utilize this resource.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I just want to, first and foremost, thank you, Gretchen, for all your incredible hard work on what you're doing and on these variety of different projects, especially with the peer network. Right now in law enforcement, they're having huge issues with retention as well, and you have so many officers that all they're doing these days is racing from hot shot call to priority one call and not really getting much of a break in between because they're having to prioritize their responses. And so having that peer network there and making sure we're doing our best to look out for one another out there in their emotional state. There's only so much trauma you can observe and absorb in your day-to-day shift over a long period of time, so that builds up over time. And if you don't have the resources and the support system in place to help you process all that trauma you witness in this job, in this vocation that we're in policing, it can build up. And so thank you all for spearheading that work. And I think it's important that for those in attendance to remind that. It's easy to lose track because you're so driven to take call to call to call to call, but not taking the time to process what's going through your mind, what you've seen, what you did, your actions did to save a life, or to the statement you had to take from someone that's been through a horrific incident. I'm glad that we as a profession are taking the right steps forward to make sure that our mental health is at the frontmost thought of many administrators and as peers. So thank you for that. And secondly, I just want to finish up with the line of duty death office holder or centralization of that stuff that you're spearheading and working on. Texas leads the nation in officer line of duty deaths, and for us to finally have a program to try to find ways to reduce the stress and burdens of surviving family members and loved ones, and even agency heads that don't know where to go to or who do I call. I think it's vital that we get this in position as soon as possible. And so I just want to personally thank you for the work you're doing on that. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We will go to our final reports, a finance report from Brian Roth.
Commissioners, you have in your packet the normal financial report, including expenditures and revenue. We're now in our first quarter of the fiscal year, so let's jump right in. Under Human Resources Operations, we were busy last fiscal year hiring. We hired 21 new employees for a small agency. That was quite a few. And also, as you know, we've had several retirements recently. As Interim Executive Director John Beecham mentioned, we have hired 8 new employees just since the last commission meeting. For financial operations, we have 2 grants live right now. The first one is our 3rd iteration of the school marshal grant. We have expended $176,000 out of that grant, with $127,000 remaining, or 58% complete. And our second is a court fee shortfall grant, $3.2 million spent, 2.6 remaining, 56% complete. Since our last commission meeting, still under financial operations, we have completed the agency legislative appropriation request, the state budget by program report, behavioral health funding schedule related to peer network. We have trained new agency staff, provided forecasts to the comptroller for the biennial revenue estimate, and we have completed other financial reporting as well. In other news, our request to the Legislative Budget Board and the Governor's Office was approved. This will allow us to move some of our funding into a capital account. This will help in giving us additional resources to be more internally connected and data-driven to align with our strategic plan initiatives. We are currently working on the sunset process, an annual financial report, hub reports, helping out with IT procurements, doing an annual report of non-financial data, our hub program, and interagency transfers. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes.
Brian, when we submitted the budget revenue estimate, Did we keep everything the same on the appropriated receipts, or did y'all make any kind of fluctuations in that?
What the starting point was, we estimated what we thought revenue would be going forward for the LAR, the legislative appropriation request. And that was kind of the baseline when the comptroller's office asked the agency, do you think there's been any changes in what you forecasted in the LAR as they're compiling their biennial revenue estimate? And that was the baseline, what we had in the LAR.
Okay, so we don't have, it comes back as appropriated receipts. We don't have to have it redone back to the agency on those dollar amounts in the BRE?
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. The other thing, and I noticed in your report, we're talking about fuels and lubricants. Basically gas has gone up. We're at 123% of the budget in that. Do you, everybody's getting hit with that personally and professionally. Long term, I guess, hopefully we don't know what's going to end up being, but I think we have enough to where it's not going to be as big an issue, because we're just having to move things around in order to cover that expense. But thank you guys for keeping an eye on that and making sure things stay forward. I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
Brian, I didn't see it anywhere here on the packet. Can you tell us what the total number of employees we have now working for TCOLE?
As of this moment, we have 63 out of 67.7 authorized. We have those additional FTEs posted. We have job vacancies. We have places where they can be applied for. All of those remaining positions that would get us up to the full 67.6 people.
Thank you. And just so we're clear, the number of people in Cullen's group answering phone calls is how many?
For the audience, that was 5.
So just so you all know, one, TCOLE, we've grown exponentially here in the last couple years, but there's about 60 people in the office, and there are 5 individuals in the office to take the thousands of calls. And I think that point was trying to be made earlier today, but we thank you for your patience. Send emails, call in. You're likely to get through pretty quickly now, thanks to those great numbers that Colin and everyone's been able to get down. So just wanted to highlight that for you all.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
So, Brian, so I sent an email late last night. So in the next few weeks, it's not a rush at all. I would like to get a full budget so that I could kind of have a closer look at things like other operating expenses, professional fees and services, and other personnel costs to see what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Well, that concludes staff reports. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the staff report.
We have a
Second.
motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes, and at this point, we are going to take a very short break. I'd like to ask folks to be back within